patch notes for the latest Star Wars Hunters update that came out the other day is finally here. As expected, it dropped around the time of the Arena Pass releasing at 2 PM earlier today. So as promised, in this video I'm going to be going over them in a bit more detail, because in the video the other day I just kind of went over what was new and not into too much depth. So now that we finally have them provided to us, I will go ahead and do that. But before I do get into that, this does have a little bit of a tease at a launch potentially happening soon, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel so that you don't miss out on any of the news on this game. But without wasting any more time, let's just jump straight into it. So the tease that I was referring to is this part here where it says, to our players who have access to the Star Wars Hunters in soft launch, we've loved seeing your excitement after each update, and now we have even more to bring you. And then it goes on to say, we appreciate all the feedback we have been receiving and we're working hard to make Hunters a truly brilliant experience. Now the tease part of it is this next paragraph, which says, to those of you who currently do not have access to Hunters, we want to assure you that more information is coming soon. We are so excited to welcome you to the arena where we know you will battle to gain galactic fame and glory against the most elite Hunters. So I think that clearly indicates that news on launch will actually be coming quite soon. When it's going to be, I don't know. It could be in 2 weeks, it could be May 4th, we will just have to wait and see. But I do have a theory on when the launch of the game is going to be, and I'll have a video on that out tomorrow. So again, don't forget to subscribe for that. So getting into it a little bit more with the update then. This update is focusing on Reev quite a lot, so the Arena Pass, which I'll showcase in a video next week, has a bunch of awesome cosmetics for Reev and a few others. This one in particular is a Darth Maul inspired skin, which is so nice. You can see there's Darth Maul's lightsaber here. And these are some other skins for it, so you've got like an Episode 2 Padme skin for Zena, DT Sentry Droid for Sentinel, and a Keller and Beck looking skin for J3 with a hood, which is really cool. And then we have a new ranked season, and the ranked skin is this one here, which is kind of like a golden Beskar Snowtrooper, which is awesome as well. But again, I'll go into these into more detail in a video next week. And again, there are some other insane skins, but the new mode is power control, so I explained that, and it's available on all 5 of the sort of default standard core maps. They've also changed Dynamic Control's respawn system to better react to the control point location actually changing. Now, I didn't play Dynamic Control enough to be able to really take notice of it, and I've not really played it enough so far with this update to be able to again notice this, but if it does genuinely help, then that is good to see. This post-match flow is really nice as well. I'm a big fan of this change, so you can actually now see a proper stats page with eliminations, assists, deaths for every single player, and then there's also a Hunter leveling up page, which we always had before anyway, but it just looks a lot nicer in my opinion, so I'm very pleased with that. Throughout the season, we're also going to be getting a lot more events, which is always fun to see. The events in the last couple of updates have been really solid with really good rewards as well, so I need to make sure I do get on with those, because I did miss out on quite a few last season. But events will be returning, and they've been a really big part of the game in terms of being able to grind stuff outside of the Battle Pass since September when they were first introduced. And then 2 pretty major parts of this update is this Hunters Path, which allows you to unlock all of the Hunters for free, which is amazing to see. A lot of the time before, it was either a case of buying them in the Battle Pass or having to spend 1,000 crystals to buy a Hunter, but now you simply just play games, and there's just a natural progression journey for players to be able to unlock Hunters for free, which is definitely something that I've been requesting for a very long time, so I'm really glad to see that. And then the Hunter's ability rework. This is the biggest thing in this update that's been causing quite a lot of outrage, but then also from other people, they've been saying this is probably for the best. Now, I can absolutely see both sides to this, but I'll go over what it's actually done first. So it's mostly just changed the way a lot of players actually play now. So Diego, for example, no longer has his flash flare ability, and then his bullseye ability where he then had an increased rate of fire for a short time. That's been removed, and instead his fire rate has just increased naturally anyway. And essentially in replacing that, he's now got a sort of heightened senses scanning ability, which you can just use and it'll have a cooldown. And his new passive ability, which used to be those heightened senses, is now a grappling hook, where if you jump and then tap the button, you will then grapple onto anything, essentially the exact same as a Maravex. So that's definitely one of the sort of biggest changes that I've noticed so far. Essentially, Diego plays completely differently now compared to what he did before, which for me it's too early to say whether or not that's a good thing or not, but from the game I have played of him so far, he's still as fun as ever, so I don't think it's going to be too major, to be honest. J3DI and Reev have also had massive changes as well. J3's overhead strike, for example, has been removed, and the reason given was that they felt it didn't fit into J3's playstyle playstyle, which is really interesting because a lot of people I've been seeing are really disappointed and upset that this ability has been removed. I personally found it came in quite clutch a lot of the time, but instead that's been taken out and he's essentially just lost that ability. Now on the plus side, J3DI's blocking ability is a lot better now because it's so much easier to deflect where the blaster shots are going to, and you can block melee attacks as well. So it's disappointing that the overhead strike's gone, but the deflecting stance is actually really good now, I've found. And then as for Reev, she's changed a little bit. All of her abilities are essentially the same, but instead of her block being passive, that's now swapped with the vicious leap. So when you jump, you can also hold the jump to then do vicious leap. And then there is now an ability slot for blocking, so she can essentially block in the same way that J3DI can as well. So that's really nice, but then Reev has one ability extra than J3DI and like other characters basically. So not everyone has the same number of abilities, which doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but it's definitely interesting because a lot of competitive games, everyone has the same number of abilities. But if in the long term it works, then I'm absolutely fine with that. And so far for me, I've not really noticed any negative changes to the games, but the more I play it, the more I will probably notice things, but we will just have to wait and see. Zena no longer has her time bomb, which is quite disappointing because I always love to use using that. Zena doesn't have her time bomb anymore, which is quite disappointing because I loved using that, but it doesn't seemingly fit the playstyle they want for her anymore. So it is a shame, but again, I've not actually played as Zena just yet, so I can't really comment too much on that. And then the final thing I wanted to draw attention to was Sentinel. So Sentinel originally was a damage hunter, but now he's actually a tank, which I think does make a lot of sense, to be honest, because that's how I always sort of visualized him anyway. I always kind of saw him as a tank, so I'm actually quite glad to see that change. So he's now got more health. They've actually scaled up his character model as well. And then his combat shield ability is now even bigger as well, so it's even harder to hit him. And then finally, the suppressive fire, instead of that being like a stun blaster and you just fire loads, it's now just one big shot with a knockdown. So that's been quite fun to play. Loads of people have been saying that Sentinel is now super OP, so whilst I've only played one game as him, probably against bots, he's always been one of my favourite characters to play anyway, so I'm sure that will continue. I've been seeing a lot of people complaining about Groz being terrible now as well, but Groz hasn't had a single change, so it's interesting to see how so many people are complaining even though he's not had a change. But I suppose in changing pretty much everyone else, then you are going to have an impact on the other characters. Now there are more to these patch notes than I've gone over, like the Z targeting update and the battle HUD and things like that, so I'll link these patch notes in the description of the video for you to check out if you want to. And like I said, tomorrow I'll have a video going over what I think could be a pretty major tease for launch and when it actually could be happening, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel. That is it from me today though. Thank you for watching, and may the force be with you always.